season would unfold as they have. A pair of dominating victories by Germany's wunderkind, Michael Schumacher. Schumacher and the Benetton Ford team have put their stamp on the most competitive Grand Prix field in years, lapping that field in Brazil and then nearly doing so in Japan. A pair of wins that have turned the odds makers on their ears and made Schumacher the runaway championship points leader. Just ask the heavy preseason favorite Ayrton Senna, whose season thus far has been a nightmare. In his home race at Sao Paulo, Brazil, Senna spun off, removing the last challenge to Schumacher's season-opening romp. 3 weeks later in Japan, Senna's Williams Renault was punted off the track by one rival and speared by another, leaving the three-time world driving champion to wonder what on earth was going on. Today, Senna and team owner Frank Williams hope to scramble back into the world championship picture at the Grand Prix of San Marino. The world leader in motorsports coverage presents Speed World. Normally coming home is a time of joy, but the mood is somber as the Formula One season begins its continental portion at the Grand Prix of San Marino. Round 3 of 16 brings the Grand Prix circus to the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari in Imola, Italy, just 30 minutes north on the Autostrada from the tiny and wealthy Republic of San Marino. Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Varsha. There is the man of the hour, Michael Schumacher of Germany, the points leader in 1994, but a man with a very troubled mind right now. Here are the point standings coming in. 2 victories mean 20 points for Schumacher, 13 over Rubens Barrichello of Brazil, who will not be driving this weekend for reasons we'll show to you in just a moment. Damon Hill and Gerhard Berger will race, and they are tied for 3rd place. Now there is Ayrton Senna, team leader for Williams, the 2-time Constructors champion, a team that is scrambling, Derek Daly.
Stunned by their lack of performance in the first 2 races, Adrian Newey has had to perform a major redesign of the FW16. He has moved the center line of the front axle back, shortened the wheelbase, therefore putting more weight on the front wheels, and also repositioned the front wings in an effort to stop the FW16 being too pitch sensitive entering corners.
The track here at Imola is all about high speed, and back in 1989 we learned what that meant when Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari plunged off the racetrack and before a horrified crowd burst into flame. Despite 20 seconds in that inferno, Berger was substantially unhurt. This weekend, once again, Derek, we learned the price of speed.
Well, we are reminded regularly of the violent nature of motor racing when we see the crash of the magnitude that befell Brazilian Rubens Barrichello. At 140 miles an hour, he launched himself off the FIA curbing and was very fortunate that the car tumbled to a stop, with Barrichello suffering bruises to an arm, his mouth, and a broken nose. This may have been a driver error, but drivers' worst fear on a high-speed circuit is mechanical failure.
And that is exactly what befell Austrian rookie Roland Ratzenberger during Saturday qualifying. Apparently, the front wing broke, the car plunged off the racetrack and pounded the concrete wall. When it came to a stop, the 31-year-old Ratzenberger was unconscious in the cockpit. He was taken from the racetrack to Majorque Hospital in nearby Barcelona and pronounced dead on the scene, becoming the first driver since Riccardo Paletti in 1982 to die on a Formula One race weekend. 5-time Formula One world champion Juan Manuel Fangio once said, "When another driver dies, you always believe he made a mistake, nothing more or less. Therefore, it is necessary to concentrate on not making mistakes. If you think you're going to die in the next race, it is better not to race at all." Tomorrow, the Formula One community will mourn one of their own. Today, the race will go on.
Chemistry is the practice of magic. People think of Teflon and they think of frying pans. Teflon is not one thing. Putting Teflon on a surface will stop bugs from crawling up trees. They'll fall right off the tree. Teflon as a chain loop is something I've come up with for bicycles. You know, only DuPont makes Teflon. And you can use it in satellites, on fabrics, or leather. When's the last time you heard about a leather raincoat? You can let your imagination run wild. It's not often that you get to make something new in this world.
No fins. No foils. No gimmicks. Just a return to the pure sports car. The 255-horse Mazda RX-7. Pretty boring, huh?
And now the RX-7 is priced to move even faster.
I bought my car new in 1970. I drove a hockey team a 190-mile round trip 3 times a week.
Haviland Formula 3 from Texaco.
I took good care of it. And when I reached 300,000, I thought, I've got to be a pretty good car.
No other leading motor oil offers more complete protection to help your car run better, last longer.
At 600,000, I thought, maybe it could be the Haviland.
Haviland Formula 3. Why add just any motor oil? Add more life to your car.
This ESPN Speed World presentation is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda, it just feels right. And by Haviland Formula 3 motor oil. Add more life to your car. Imola, Italy. Bob Varsh and Derek Daly with you for the Grand Prix of San Marino. Final tweaking is going on the race cars down on the racetrack. Right now, let's take a look at the starting lineup with the help of our Yamaha starting grid. The front row is the same as it has been for the last couple of races. It will be Ayrton Senna on the pole for the 65th time in his career alongside Michael Schumacher of Germany in the Benetton, but the two men just 1st and 11th in the morning warm-up. Row 2, Gerhard Berger, saddened by the death of his Austrian countryman, but he has Ferrari in its best qualifying position of the year alongside Damon Hill of Great Britain in the Williams. Row 3 will be JJ Leto of Finland in his first start of the year, coming back from neck injuries in the Benetton. Next to him, Nicola Larini in the Ferrari, sitting in for the injured John Alesi. Row 4 will be Heinz-Harald Freundsen, the top rookie in the field in the Sauber. Next to him, Mika Hakkinen in the top McLaren Peugeot. Row 5 will be Ukio Katayama of Japan in the Tyrrell, his best performance ever in qualifying, next to Austrian Karl Wendlinger in the Sauber. Row 6, Gianni Morbidelli of Italy in the footwork, next to the Tyrrell of Great Britain's Mark Blundell. Row 7 will be Martin Brundle in the second McLaren, next to the Minardi Ford of Pierluigi Martini of Italy. On row 8, Michele Alboreto will start his Minardi, the spare car from the pit lane. Christian Fittipaldi of Brazil in the footwork will have the row to himself. Row 9, Eric Comas of France in the Ligier, next to the Larousse of Frenchman Bernard and Comas. Row 10, Olivier Panis of France in the second Ligier, and Johnny Herbert of Great Britain in the Lotus. Row 11, Andrea De Cesaris of Italy, sitting in for the suspended Eddie Irvine in the Jordan, next to Pedro Lamy of Portugal in the second Lotus. Row 12, Olivier Beretta of Monaco in the Larousse, and hard to believe though it may be, David Brabham of Australia will start the second Simtech. On row 13, all alone, Bertrand Gachot of France in the Pacific with Ilmor power. Those who did not qualify, Paul Belmondo of France in the Pacific, Rubens Barrichello of Brazil injured for Jordan, and of course the late Roland Ratzenberger will not be racing. The track is 3.1 miles around. We're going 61 laps. Derek Daly, your analysis.
Well, when you come to Imola, you better hope that all the horses behind you are alive and kicking and screaming, because pure horsepower here makes a very big difference. Considered a low-grip circuit with far too many chicanes, but the dramatic elevation changes still position this track as one of the most popular. 200 miles an hour is commonplace on the run through Villeneuve and down to Tosa. And down here at Rivazza, there have been lots of spins in practice and qualifying.
No question about it. The speeds here are extraordinary. Ayrton Senna's lap averaging 137.8 miles an hour. Now, as the field gets ready to pull out, let's take a look at our post-time conditions. Very, very hot here in Italy. Temperature 80 to 85 degrees, a very light breeze, partly cloudy skies, very high humidity, and that will certainly take its toll on the drivers, and very low chance of rain, we should point out. Derek, as we wait for the field to go out for its formation lap, we've heard a lot about neck injuries. Jean Alesi, Barrichello had a big crash, JJ Leto coming back from a neck problem. It's the talk of the pit lane. What are your impressions?
And of course, Christian Fittipaldi last year still carries the results of that neck injury he received last year. There is talk from Max Mosley that they have to do something to provide a crushable structure behind the driver in the cockpit area, probably similar to what Indy cars use, because they've gone through this injury-prone situation before. But there are way too many crashes recently that have caused these neck injuries. Remember, Leto had to have bone grafting from his hip to replace the vertebrae, and Alesi has just gone through that. Remember, breaking the vertebrae is one thing, but paralysis is a major problem that you can also endure and encounter coming back from such a crash or an injury.
Cars are on the track. This is the highest point of the circuit, Piratella. And they plunge downhill through the Acqua Minerale chicane. You can see a huge crowd on hand, some 200,000 people expected today. Of course, having Ferraris up in the top 3 rows certainly brings out the Italians, the Tifosi, the legendary fans of the prancing horse Mark. Now, the rumor sweeping the pit lane is that David Brabham was reluctant to start the Simtech car today, but officials prevailed upon him in order to keep the field as full as possible. That story, I'm sure, will continue on into the future.
It's a Quicksilver wheel cleaner.
Even though you may have never used a steel chainsaw, you already know how it feels to cut with one. Now available in steel territory, starting at only $199.95.
The 3M Filtrete Clean Air Filter gets more of the small stuff that's in your air out. Stuff an ordinary furnace and air conditioner filter would miss. Like more of the dust, more of the pollen and mold, more of these particles that could irritate your allergies. It even gets more animal dander. Try the Filtrete Clean Air Filter. It gets more of the aggravating things in your air out. Even smoke. Look for the 3M Filtrete Clean Air Filter wherever you buy furnace or air conditioner filters.
Introducing NASCAR, a celebration of automotive function and form. Exceptional handling for a ride you won't forget. In traffic or on the open road. Experience NASCAR for yourself today. It's the Winston Select 500 at 1:30 p.m.
The back of the gridding plowed into the back of Didier Pironi, who was actually the pole sitter at the time. He did not have a chance to avoid it. He went straight into the back of it and was killed instantly.
Now, the Benetton has been pulled off the racetrack. As you can see, the safety car is on course, leading the field past the site of the wreckage. We may get a green flag this time around, but I'm not sure. There you see Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher running 1 and 2 behind the safety car. Initial reports are that our drivers are okay. We saw Lamy get out and run back toward the pits. We understand J.J. Leto is okay as well.
And what we will wait for is a report on that wheel, whether the wheel or both wheels that went into the grandstand. Remember, that is a packed grandstand right across from the pits. So we do not know yet whether there has been any injury sustained with those flying wheels.
Senna brings the field around. The racetrack here in Imola, despite the depressing nature of the weekend thus far, is gorgeous. It's an absolutely beautiful place, fully a part of the town, not set off in the countryside as racetracks so often are. There are actually farms and parks on the interior of the racetrack, and it is one of the most popular tracks among all the teams for testing purposes during the years. I would imagine there's not a single racetrack on the circuit, with the possible exception of Silverstone in England, that the teams know better than this one.
Senna now drops back behind the pace car. Get him out of the way, down the pit lane, and then blast. There's Damon Hill, the Sauber Frentzen, lucky to escape that. Now Senna blasts. Look at this, and he's too close to the pace car. The pace car doesn't leave.
It appears they will have another lap. Let's take a look at the accident site, if our friends from Italian television go that far. Senna stays to the left-hand side of the road, so it looks, yes, the site of the accident is clear, but we'll have at least one more lap behind the safety car. Now, this is the Tamburello corner, highest speed point on the racetrack, over 200 miles an hour through this section.
Senna was only 1 second slower in the morning warm-up on full tanks than he qualified. But remember, after Ratzenberger was killed, Senna and Damon Hill and both the Ferrari cars failed to go back out to qualify as a mark of respect.
The Saubers and the Benettons didn't go out as well. Now, there seems to be a trend developing in Formula One, and it has to do with the age of the drivers. Take a look at the top 5 in points and their ages. Schumacher, 25. Barrichello, the youngest man out there, at 21. Fittipaldi, 23. Frentzen, 26. Wendlinger, 25. The average age of the Formula One starting grid, 28.5 years of age. Several years younger than it used to be. Another look at the start disaster.
And watch the wheels. There's the impact. Both wheels clear, and you can see there were injuries there.
We may have a better look at it here. Now you see the wheels clear the fence. One of them went up into the grandstand. Folks down by the fence have a chance to move. Up in the grandstand, packed as it is, you would not have a chance to get out of the way.
You'd be shocked how quickly these cars accelerate. They can go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in just over 2.5 seconds. So it's very easy to have a high-speed impact. Now, J.J. Leto, I'm sure, is delighted to walk away from that, having just returned from such a serious neck injury. But now, this is back to a pace car situation. Senna drops back and lets the pace car move as far forward as we can. We have a good look at the redesigned front suspension. Visually, it's difficult to pick it out, but it's a shorter wheelbase car now, which makes it a little bit more difficult to handle, but it puts more weight on the front to try and give the front bite turning into corners.
That was in the Ravazza corner. This is down in the Variante Bassa. Now through Traguardo, and Senna all by himself. Now the safety car stays out there.
You know, Senna's not sure what's happening here. One of the Minardis.
Didn't get a look at the helmet. That might have been Alboreto. I thought I saw the slash of yellow that he wears on his helmet in deference to his early racing hero, the late Ronnie Peterson. Now, this is on the back side of the course.
On the downhill run to Ravazza. I don't know whether he can make it all the way down there or not, but Senna seems to be unsure as to when the pace car is about to leave the racetrack. He hangs back, then he accelerates to the last chicane, realizes the pace car is still there, and away he goes again. But Schumacher obviously thinks it's going to happen this time because he aggressively warms up those tires.
The lights are off on the pace car. This is the scene of Ratzenberger's accident. In the background, Villeneuve, in the foreground, Tosa. Yet another look at that huge crash. Now, you see debris made it all the way to the top of the grandstand as you watch Lamy, who went to the left side of the track and hit the wall, over to the right side, hitting it again. Incredible, the nature of the damage to both race cars. And good to hear that J.J. Leto, with that repaired vertebra in his neck, is apparently going to be all right. Now, there you see Senna has dropped well back from the safety car, slowing the field. He's actually got quite a distance to go. He's only about 2/3 of the way around the racetrack.
The downhill run to the Acqua Minerale chicane. Through the chicane, we're now on board with Damon Hill. Warm the tires up. These engines do not like running at these low speeds because they overheat. Remember, air through the radiators is what cools the water, which is what cools the engines. They don't like running this slowly.
We're coming around to the end of lap number 5. We have yet to have green flag racing. 61 laps scheduled here. Let's talk about tires for a moment. The entire field is on the soft D compound Goodyears, with the exception of one team. I believe it's Minardi that started on the C compound, the slightly harder medium compound tires.
And also Tyrrell. Tyrrell made the decision also to go on the C. Now, Goodyear said it's not the wear that's the problem. It's the pit stop say they know they're going to make for fuel that allows them to run the softer tire because they just won't wear them out.
Once more down the hill to Ravazza. This double left-hander. Martin Brundle had a big spin here in practice on Friday. Now on to the front side.
Schumacher read what Senna was going to do and just left Berger trailing in the dust. Bad mistake if you're going to try and win this race. Schumacher said he's got to get with Senna ahead of him if possible on the early laps if he's going to have a chance to beat him.
There is Nicola Larini, the defending German touring car champion for Alfa Romeo, who works as a testing driver for the Ferrari team and is sitting in for Jean Alesi, who we are told this weekend will not be racing in the upcoming, well, let me say that, he is questionable for the race 2 weeks from now at Monaco, the grandest of all Grand Prix events. There you see the running order as we complete our first lap of green flag racing at Imola. There is Damon Hill with one of the Saubers just behind him, then a McLaren, and then Larini.
And Katayama, a surprise again, out-qualifying his more experienced and considered faster teammate, Mark Lundell.
Through the Traguardo corner, Ayrton Senna runs ahead of Michael Schumacher, who gets those left side wheels up on the curbing.
And you can clearly see how horsepower makes such a big difference here. Is that bodywork loose? Oh, big crash.
Big Senna has gone off at a very, very quick part of the racetrack.
Same place as Berger had that huge crash 2 years ago, or in '89. Look at this, look at Hakkinen almost gets caught up. But Senna must have had a mechanical failure and has a huge crash, and he is still stationary and motionless in that racing car.
That is the Tamburello corner, taking it close to 200 miles an hour. You're right, that's where Gerhard Berger went off and had that huge wreck. No motion from the yellow helmet of Ayrton Senna in the car.
Nelson Piquet in a Williams had a mechanical failure here also several years ago and had a very, very big crash. There is no motion in that car. I don't know why the medical staff is not already there. There, he is moving. He is moving.
And we have a red flag. The race will be brought to a halt.
Where is the medical staff? Why is there not a doctor there with Senna already?
I don't understand this because Imola, the Ferrari circuit here in Imola, has a reputation as one of the best marshaled in all of Formula One. When Berger had his accident back in '89, there were corner workers on the run toward his car before it stopped and burst into flames. Now I saw a course car pull up next to Senna. Let's see if we can tell what happened.
Something clearly broke. He leaves the track at a tremendous speed. Probably 190 miles an hour. Huge impact as the outside wheels, tires, bodywork, and Senna is already unconscious because of that impact.
Once again, the question has to be head and neck injury. With those helmets, and helmet makers have done much to try to lighten those helmets while still providing protection, they are still enormously heavy when taken together with the weight of the driver's head, and that puts tremendous stress on the neck of the drivers in these huge crashes, 10, 15, 20 G impacts.
This is not a good sign here for Ayrton Senna. I was shocked how long it took the medical staff to get there. Remember, they are parked at the head of the pit lane, which is only 200 or 300 yards away, yet it took them so long to get there. Now, these impacts do cause major problems. Barrichello, actually, when the doctors got to him on Friday, there's Professor Sid Watkins in the red overalls leaning over, but Barrichello, in his crash on Friday, when the doctors got there, had actually swallowed his tongue and blocked his airway that the doctors recognized very quickly and were there to save very, very serious injury.
Another very frightening moment. We'll take a timeout and return to tell you what we can learn about the condition of Ayrton Senna. Please stay with us.
I have a bogey at 12 o'clock. Locked on. Bingo.
Downed any bogeys lately? The new 1995 Lexus SC300. Priced to fly. Whether you buy or lease at your Northern California Lexus dealer.
Unfortunately, I'm a klutz. You know from a klutz? I just don't do well with mechanical things, and that's why I like the message center. I don't have to play around with a lot of gadgets. I put in a code number, and I get all of my messages. If I want to listen to it again, I hit number 1, or if I hear something like my grandchild's precious voice,
Hi, Papa! Yeah, you!
then I hit number 2, save it. And if it's somebody I don't like, boom, I hit number 3, and they're all gone. For a klutz like me, it's wonderful.
Would you ever curse a nun?
No.
Would you ever charge a kid for an autograph? Would you ever grab yourself in front of millions?
Sunday Night Baseball, the Red Sox versus the Angels, tonight, only on ESPN.
Back at a shocked Ferrari circuit in Imola, Italy, Bob Varsha and Derek Daly with you for the Grand Prix of San Marino, where the race has been stopped after just a handful of laps following our second major wreck of the day. This one involving three-time world champion Ayrton Senna. Let's take another look, Derek.
Tamburello. Now there's something leaving black marks as Senna leaves the racetrack. He's already picked sixth gear right before he comes into picture and virtually had no braking. Lost very little speed as he made that heavy, very heavy impact.
That was what I was about to say. No sign of smoke from those tires at all. It appeared that the wheels were not being slowed. And virtually no steering on the car. He was well by his apex. Just at the side of your screen, you may have seen Schumacher entering the picture already well into his turn. A turn that Ayrton Senna, for some reason, did not make. We still have no word on Senna's condition at the moment. We'll take another timeout and return and tell you what we can learn about Ayrton Senna. Michael Schumacher takes over the lead. Stay with us.
No fins, no foils, no gimmicks. Just a return to the pure sports car. The 255-horse Mazda RX-7. Pretty boring, huh?
And now the RX-7 is priced to move even faster.
You saw yourself on a Harley, the tyrant of the two-lane.
And you on stage at Madison Square Garden, the lights, the fans.
Then you met her. Goodbye, Harley.
Hello, Diamond.
Matching towels.
Power tools.
And a house. Now you're remodeling, buying lumber and plywood.
Choosing paneling. Molding.
Doors. Windows. Tile backer. Tile backer? Would you say your interests have evolved?
Georgia Pacific. Whatever you dream for your home, we help you build on your imagination.
It began in the heartland, in towns small and large. By building on the success of local independent businesses, this once little company has quietly grown surprisingly big. In fact, today it serves you at over 12,500 convenient locations. More than any other company of any kind in America. Citgo. Feel the pride.
Back at Imola, Italy, Bob Varsha, Derek Daly, the Grand Prix of San Marino has been brought to a stop after 6 laps following a huge shunt involving three-time world champion Ayrton Senna. Moments ago, we saw Gerhard Berger walking down the pit lane from left to right in your picture toward the medical center. The late Joe Sifford once said, when you take on this job driving a racing car, they give you a checkbook, and every time you have a big crash, you write a check to the angels. There is the medevac chopper.
So Ayrton Senna will be airlifted from the racetrack. We saw him in the car for a long, long time motionless. We saw one movement of his head and his helmet, and then the doctors got there. It's difficult to understand and see what happened here in this accident, but if you look there at the still, we look at the front wings, we look at the rear wing and the front suspension. Everything is on that car. Now what we don't know is whether he got a puncture in the right front, whether there was something mechanically with the suspension, but he obviously made no attempt to get round Tamburello, and just a huge impact. I hate to say it, but that impact is very, very similar to the impact that Ratzenberger suffered yesterday during qualifying. It was a sideways impact into the concrete retaining wall.
That impact, of course, throws the weight of the driver's head and helmet to the right or left, as the case may be, with tremendous force. There is the scene of the crash. Apparently, Ayrton Senna will not go to the medical center. The medevac chopper is right there on the racetrack at the scene of the accident. 34-year-old Ayrton Senna from Sao Paulo, Brazil, earning some $20 million a year plying his trade as a Formula One Grand Prix racing driver.
Undoubtedly the most famous name in Formula One or in racing period around the world. A man that you're shocked to see injured, or hopefully not seriously injured, when something like this happens. But this weekend seems to have shown on 3 different days now how vulnerable drivers can be and how potentially dangerous motor racing can be, because it seems to have gone a long time without serious injury at such a high-speed sport, and suddenly in 3 days, 3 different serious accidents, we have reminders.
You just heard the sound of a racing car taking off. There is one of the LaRousse cars in red and white. Knowing that the accident scene was just around the corner from the pit exit, I was wondering as Derek was speaking, what in the world someone was getting all the way up to full tilt boogie with that scene just around the corner. But there is the LaRousse car parked. The driver, I believe that's Eric Comas from the look of his helmet, asking to be allowed to go through, and apparently he will be allowed through. Ayrton Senna will be airlifted to Majore Hospital in Barcelona.
The problem when racing cars hit concrete walls sideways like that so hard, it's sometimes not the impact sideways, it's the wheels and suspension pieces that have to go somewhere that come back and very often wrap their way into the cockpit and bang the driver's head. That can cause the serious injuries.
There is Pedro Lamy, the 22-year-old Portuguese driver for Lotus, who was involved in that crash at the start line that took both him and J.J. Leto out of this race. But those drivers are all right. The one we are concerned about now is the 3-time world champion, Ayrton Senna. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Ron Jones. People who receive or install unauthorized cable service are guilty of a crime, punishable by a fine of $500 or imprisonment in the county jail. The California Penal Code carries more severe penalties for cable theft. You can be fined up to $10,000 for a first offense. If you're receiving cable service illegally, please call Cable Oakland at 261-6800 to set up service legally. No questions asked. Remember, cable theft is a crime. You can either talk to them or deal with us.
Is the new Infinity G20, and this is Infinity's new electronic key. Now, I'm going to have to talk fast, so listen. Get out, press this, lock all the doors. If you can't remember what you just did, in which case it's going to be a long day, press this. It shows you the car is locked. On your way back, press this and open the trunk. Unlock the driver's door, unlock all the doors. And if some oddball is hanging about your car, press this. Visit your Infinity showroom, and you can have one to play with too. I wonder what this is for.
Of golf and entertainment come together in the City of Lights. Senior legends hit the jackpot at the Las Vegas Senior Classic this afternoon, only on ESPN. Top Rank Boxing. Danny Kid Dynamite Romero tries blasting his way to the Flyweight Championship. Plus, former champion Johnny Tapia fights for his 23rd straight win. Top Rank Boxing, Thursday night on ESPN.
You're watching live the circuit Enzo and Dino Ferrari in Imola, Italy at the Grand Prix of San Marino, which has been brought to a stop by the accident. You're looking at the scene where Ayrton Senna, the 3-time world champion from Brazil, went off one of the fastest corners, the fastest corner on the racetrack, Tamburello, at unabated speed and hard into the concrete wall. He laid motionless in the car for a very long time before the doctors got to him, and they are still preparing Ayrton Senna for a helicopter flight to Majore Hospital just up the highway from the racetrack.
And remember, we're only 6 laps into this race. This is the second big crash of the race. On the start line, J.J. Leto stalled and was plowed into by Pedro Lamy in the Lotus. That caused a full course yellow, which is something very strange in Formula One. That was the start of this bad afternoon. No sooner had they cleared it up than 2 laps under racing conditions, Senna lost control of the Williams. We can't see why. The wings were on the car, the wheels were on the car, so we can't speculate why this happened. But it's amazing that 3 races into this season, Senna has no points when it was almost a foregone conclusion by everybody that he was a lock for his 4th World Championship, and now disaster strikes again.
Now, we're working hard to try to find out Ayrton Senna's condition. There you see one of the Ferraris being pushed toward the end of the pit lane. But please bear with us. There is no information being offered to us right now from the FIA officials or the race officials about Ayrton Senna's condition. We'll try not to read anything into the situation as you're seeing Senna being taken to the helicopter. It was not on a backboard. I guess the question that needs to be raised now, Derek, is we've seen this spate of accidents that have injured drivers. This is a new technological era in Formula One. All the computerized driver aids, active suspension, and so forth, taken away from the technical formula for Formula One. Someone might argue, I suppose, that we now know that those computer aids provided a margin of safety. Is that not too great a leap in logic?
I think the biggest margin of safety that has developed in these cars over the years is the survival cell, or the carbon composite structure that is built around these drivers. Very often you see the tub and the monocoque still in one piece after enormous crashes. We see it here with Senna. Unfortunately, it's what's bolted onto the car that causes the most serious injuries, which is what we may be seeing here. Now, something else the Williams team will be very concerned about was what failed on Senna's Williams. Because remember, they have a second car out there driven by Damon Hill. And if something serious has failed, as we watch Mika Hakkinen look concerned, because obviously he does not know what happened to his last year's teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. But Damon Hill will be anxious, as well as Patrick Head and Frank Williams and Adrian Newey and all the design team at Williams, to try and identify as quickly as possible what failed on that Williams.
Given the length of time that Ayrton Senna lay motionless in that car and the length of time that they worked on him before putting him in this helicopter, we have to assume that this is a very, very serious situation. Nevertheless, unfortunately, we have nothing further to add to that situation right now by way of clarification as Ayrton Senna makes his way to the hospital in Bologna. We'll be back with more live coverage of the Grand Prix of San Marino.
If you're looking for a reliable place to service your car or truck, I've got great news for you.
Now with Pep Boys, $5 rebate on Gabriel Pro Rider shocks. Struts, $10 rebate.
Come to Pep Boys and drive away happy.
Alternative math. What do 1 crust sandwich, 1 order of hash browns, and 1 hot coffee add up to?
$1.99.
At Burger King, just $1.99 every day. We may not be the world's #1 fast food place. It just tastes that way.
Leave it to Peerless Faucet to create a shower so smart it can not only sense when a toilet has been flushed, it can also adjust the water temperature accordingly. Scald Guard technology by Peerless. Get more out of your faucet than just water.
The hand on the left is waxing a car with an old sock. On the right is the Black & Decker Handy Buffer. It's 25 times faster and so easy, there's no excuse not to keep your car looking like new. It'll knock your socks off. The Black & Decker Handy Buffer.
It's a major breakthrough in auto protectant technology. Formula 2001 Super Protectant. It provides a more brilliant, longer-lasting shine than Armor All on vinyl and leather. And look, in the Arizona desert, Formula 2001 brought back the shine to UV-faded vinyl, rubber, even leather. Get the new standard in automotive protectant technology. Formula 2001, with 50% more active shining ingredients than Armor All. Get Formula 2001 products today.
The stars of golf and entertainment come together in the City of Lights. Senior legends hit the jackpot at the Las Vegas Senior Classic this afternoon, only on ESPN.
Back at Imola, Italy, there is the scene as the cars come back to the starting grid to try to get the Grand Prix of San Marino, the third round of 16 in the Formula One World Driving Championship for 1994. Let's go back to the start of this race and take another look at the first of two major accidents that have afflicted this race thus far. Watch the right-hand line of cars. The Benetton of J.J. Leto goes nowhere. Cars begin to dodge around him, but then the Lotus of Pedro Lamy has nowhere to go, and he clouts it. A tremendous blow.
And that caused our first full course yellow when the pace car did come out and slowed everybody down for a full 4 laps. You see Pedro Lamy gets out. J.J. Leto's car loses that left suspension and the complete side pod, complete right side of the Lotus gone. You can see the monocoque severely damaged, but thankfully Pedro Lamy gets out and runs back to the safety of the Lotus pit. That was the first lap, 4 laps under yellow, and then after only 2 racing laps, Ayrton Senna had a huge crash coming through Tamburello. Mechanical failure of some sort, unabated speed, and slams into that outside retaining wall. Senna at least was knocked unconscious and laid motionless in the car for what seemed an eternity, a long, long time before the medical staff got to his aid.
There is Senna's car being taken back to the garages. To add a layer of irony to what you've just seen, just this morning, former world champion Niki Lauda, now serving as an advisor to Ferrari, called for Ayrton Senna to create a new driver's safety group following the tragic accident which claimed the life of Austrian Roland Ratzenberger on Saturday. Lauda said, "It needs a strong personality to take care of this, and at the moment I think this is Senna. He should come and do it." Lauda also said the key was the driver's necks, which he says are now exposed to danger as the weakest part of the car-driver package in accidents. Now, the word we're getting from officials is that we will be ready to restart this race within approximately 10 minutes as you see the grid reforming.
Dr. Terry Trammell, who looks after so many of the injured IndyCar drivers here in America, has said as these cars get stronger, the most important thing is that they maintain this crushability so as all the G-forces are not transmitted into the driver's body. Because he said, believe it or not, at a 60-mile-an-hour dead stop, remember, without any crush structure, just 60 miles an hour, the human body cannot withstand it. So it has to crush. But in this case, the car didn't crush, but the bits did fly off. And that is what has caused what we think a serious injury to Ayrton Senna.
There is Michael Schumacher's car. The cars, of course, will form up in running order, which at this point is Schumacher and Gerhard Berger, then Damon Hill.
Now, from a driver's point of view, believe it or not, you do not really want to know the condition of Ayrton Senna. If it's bad, you'd rather not know, because you have to remain totally focused, because you're about to strap on a 200-mile-an-hour machine again and go back to battle through the same corners that Senna had his big crash and Ratzenberger lost his life. So that is an unusual makeup of a racing driver, that he is emotionally cold enough and mentally strong enough to put that out of his mind totally and get on with the business of racing. That's what they're paid for, and that's what they have to do.
You had a quick look there at Nicola Larini doing his best along with Gerhard Berger. Right there, that's Berger's car, trying to end Ferrari's longest non-winning streak ever. Now at 52 races and counting. They haven't won since the Spanish Grand Prix back in 1990 when Alain Prost brought them that victory. Let's take a look at recent winners of this Grand Prix of San Marino. Ayrton Senna has won it 3 times. As you see, going back to 1989, in fact, you have to go back to 1986 to find someone other than a Williams or McLaren driver, and make that 1985 when Elio De Angelis won for Lotus. Since that time, it has been Prost, Mansell, and Senna in either a Williams or a McLaren.
And of course, De Angelis, one of the most popular drivers in Formula One, moved to the Brabham team after his stint with Lotus and had a mechanical failure at a high-speed S's testing at Paul Ricard and lost his life in pursuit of his dream.
And you see Martin Brundle and his McLaren. There is the footwork. That is Gianni Morbidelli's car. The order right now: Schumacher, Berger, Hill, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Mika Hakkinen, and Nicola Larini. In just a few minutes, this race will begin again, and we will be there to bring it to you live.
People ask me to endorse the strangest things. A green recliner? Not much of a sitter. I like going fast. 68 Shelby, and there's only about 300 and some odd made. This car rips. Pure oil now. Keeping them up's half the fun. They all get Pure Later filters. Pure oil later. I snag them from the track.
Legends live. Pure Later, Pure Later.
Introducing the full line of Tiger Shark personal watercraft. The high-performance Barracuda. The 1- or 2-person Daytona. The affordable Montego or Montego Deluxe. And for family fun, it's the Monte Carlo. They're sleek, fast, powerful. They're Tiger Shark watercraft. Accept no imitations.
Every Monday, there's a heat wave. Every Tuesday, it snows. And the rest of the week doesn't get any better. Testing the reliability of Trane air conditioners takes 16 miserable weeks. But when it's helping to make them some of the most durable air conditioners on Earth, you don't mind the sudden changes in weather. Designed, tested, and manufactured to last. It's hard to stop a Trane.
Welcome back live to the Grand Prix of San Marino at Imola, Italy. Bob Varsha and Derek Daly with you. We are preparing for a restart. There will be 53 laps to go when the race begins. Let's take a look back at some of the mechanical carnage that has taken place this weekend. This was the scene on Friday when Rubens Barrichello flew off the racetrack and into the catch fencing. The car tumbled to a stop.
And his very, very lucky boy that he almost cleared the tire barrier and then got caught in the safety fencing. However, he did receive bruises. You see him taken away here. Lots of blood from a bleeding nose. A broken nose, in fact, it was, and heavy bruising. And then, of course, we had Roland Ratzenberger.
Flying off the racetrack, what is being termed a mechanical breakdown. The front wing left the car, and Niki Lauda himself said, when that happens, you are basically a passenger.
This is through the Villeneuve right-hander. They are doing 200 miles an hour when Ratzenberger left the racetrack.
Now we are back live. There you see Martin Brundle's McLaren. The driver is not in the car yet. In fact, they're working on the Peugeot engine. These are cars that you have to wonder about today. The Peugeot engine thus far this year has run very, very hot. Now we have a very warm day here, about 85 degrees or so at Imola. And you have to wonder, with all the slow lappery that's taken place thus far, how that Peugeot engine is faring.
And as regards horsepower, they were 7 miles an hour slower down this long front straight than the fastest car this weekend. The fastest car, interestingly enough, was the Ferrari, who this weekend here came with a new development, a 75-degree V in their new V12 engine. They don't have it here in the race, but they did run it Friday. So for Ferrari, in the ongoing quest for more speed, remember, Ferrari are the only team that builds the engine, gearbox, and the chassis, as we look at one of the footwork cars.
Technology marches on in Formula One. Virtually every team has new developments at the racetrack. The Sauber team has a new engine that they too are not racing today, but they will soon. Notice the lack of experience in this race. Only 4 drivers in today's field actually finished this race a year ago. The race won in dominating fashion by Alain Prost, who won his 4th World Driving Championship and then left the series. You had a look at Pierre Luigi Martini about to mount up. There's another one of the footwork cars. Notice the foil they use to keep the sun, radiant heat, off of the engine covers on these cars. Now there is Gerhard Berger, who has already seen his countryman Roland Ratzenberger killed in an accident. That is Bernie Ecclestone, the head of the Formula One Constructors Association, speaking with Berger. Berger has also seen his former teammate and good friend Ayrton Senna hurt to a degree that we are still not aware of in a huge accident at Tamburello.
And his current teammate, Jean Alesi, just spent time in hospital again with bone grafting on crushed vertebrae after a huge testing crash at Mugello 3 weeks ago. Now, the doctor has cleared Alesi to start testing next week, but remember how long it took J.J. Leto to come back as we watched Damon Hill suit up and go back to battle? Remember how long it took J.J. Leto to get back? The rumor is now that Alesi may, in fact, also have to miss the Grand Prix of Monaco in 2 weeks' time.
You wonder what is going through Damon Hill's mind right now. I don't believe he can really know for sure what it was that took his teammate's car off the racetrack. He was speaking there with Adrian Newey, aerodynamicist and co-designer of this race car, with Patrick Head, the technical chief for the Williams team.
Annie Bradshaw there, who handles the Williams public relations. Damon confers with Adrian Newey. Oh, that's a very concerned look on Adrian Newey. Remember, from a designer's point of view, the car is their baby. They are responsible for what the driver has to sit into and risk his life driving. So they take full responsibility on a personal level for anything mechanical that may break on those cars.
A look down into the cockpit of Mika Hakkinen's McLaren. The most technically sophisticated Formula One car McLaren has ever built, according to team manager Ron Dennis, who for the first time since he took over the team at the beginning of the decade of the 80s, they do not have a world champion in their driver's strength. It is Mika Hakkinen, Martin Brundle, and Philippe Ayot, all very competent drivers, among the best in the world, but not proven world champions. The question in the McLaren camp this year is, will races be won with this new V10 Peugeot engine? Ron Dennis says unequivocally, yes, we will win races this year. While Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who heads up the engine program for Peugeot, says we don't expect to win races this year. Of course, at McLaren, you expect to win. They have always won races. There is the mark on the tire wall where Ayrton Senna went in.
Interesting. We've had so many crashes here at Tamburello. Why is there no tire barriers there? Tires are the greatest energy absorbers that you can use at racetracks. The question has to be, why is there no tire barriers to absorb and arrest these cars before they make that serious impact with the concrete walls?
In fact, there were tire barriers at neither location where Ayrton Senna or Roland Ratzenberger crashed. We are moments away from a proposed restart at the Grand Prix of San Marino, with Michael Schumacher and Gerhard Berger leading the way.
Sprint cars, NASCAR, Indy cars, through the years, I've driven them all.
Haviland Formula 3 from Texaco.
One thing I've learned, no matter what you drive, you've got to take care of it. Haviland is the one.
No other leading motor oil offers more complete protection to help your car run better, last longer, even if you haven't been driving as long as Mario.
There's an old Italian saying, when you're cooking, you've got to use the right oil.
Haviland Formula 3. Why add just any motor oil? Add more life to your car.
The average person puts 9,000 times the weight of a sumo wrestler on their feet every day. That's why Dr. Scholl's created advanced insoles and inserts to give your shoes revolutionary cushioning and shock absorption. Make life in your shoes more comfortable.
#1 selling brand of chainsaws worldwide. Also makes a full line of trimmers, specially priced in steel territory, starting at $79.95.
This ESPN Speed World presentation is being brought to you by your local Yamaha dealer, who invites you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles. And by Steel, makers of a full line of outdoor power equipment built to handle most any job in steel territory. Welcome back to an increasingly somber Ferrari racetrack at Imola, Italy. Bob Varsha and Derek Daly with you. The Grand Prix of San Marino remains under a red flag. We are told we are just moments away from one formation lap, and then we will continue with 53 laps of hopefully uninterrupted racing after two absolutely astonishing crashes. One at the beginning of this race involving Pedro Lamy of the Lotus team and J.J. Leto and his Benetton. Both cars totally destroyed. Both drivers thankfully all right. At this point, we cannot say the same because we do not know about three-time world champion Ayrton Senna, the only active world champion in Formula One racing, who went off the racetrack at unabated speed at Tamburello, the fastest part of the racetrack, and pounded the concrete wall. He laid motionless in the car for a long period of time, was bundled off to the hospital after another long treatment by doctors at the scene, and we have no update on his condition at this point.
We have a warm-up lap, and then we will have another standing start as one of the Saubers looked like Frentzen was slow off the line. But now the interesting thing to watch is the drag race between the Ferrari V12. Frentzen is in trouble. He's obviously stalled him. But now we're going to watch the drag race down to Villeneuve and Tosa between the V12 Ferrari and the V8 Ford of Schumacher and Berger.
There goes one of the Ferraris, Nicola Larini. Ferrari looking very good here. Now there you see the Sauber, a technician out there with what looks like a battery.
They pushed him into pit lane, so he can start from the pit lane, but only after everybody else has already gone through. I can guarantee you Berger is thinking about this drag race, because if he can get ahead of Schumacher, it can be a huge advantage. Hill and Hakkinen third, fourth, then Larini.
A professional race driver's job is to drive the race car. But speaking only for myself, you have to wonder how much heart these professionals will be able to devote to their series today. There you see Karl Wendlinger of Austria in the Sauber, just behind Nicola Larini, as they go downhill now to the Ravazza corner, just 2 or 3 corners away from the starting grid. Recall here at Ravazza a few years ago in the pouring rain when Alain Prost's Ferrari spun off the racetrack to a stop out of the race before it even began. Nigel Mansell went off at the start, and just like that, 2 of the reigning superheroes of Formula One were out of this race before it could even get underway.
All the big names of Formula One over the last 5 years, Piquet, Prost, Mansell, and Senna, are not in this race.
Which in itself helped explain the trend towards younger drivers. Average age of the field, all 28 cars entered in the World Championship, just over 28 years of age. A few years ago, I did my sums, and it was about 31. That, of course, when you had Prost, Piquet, Mansell, and the like in the field.
Notice the way everybody comes down to their starting position on the left side of the racetrack. That's because that is the cleanest part of the track where everybody runs before they then move over to the right side, because potentially they could pick up some debris or stones or anything that could cause punctures for the tires. Another restart.
Martin Brundle's McLaren. For Berger, let's see if he will challenge Schumacher. And he takes it. Berger moves into the lead on the run through Tamburello, down to Villeneuve, and then Tosa. Schumacher looking around the outside.
The V12 against the V8, now under braking.
Damon Hill coming down the inside to get under Schumacher. Looked like Hakkinen pulling the McLaren in just behind him. They all made it through that corner, but not without some wheel banging. Martin Brundle getting together with someone there.
The Ferrari leads a Grand Prix for the first time in a long time. Damon Hill, I think he had contact with Schumacher. He has damaged something, and now he moves way, way back. So the second Williams in deep trouble.
On board now with Damon Hill, as you see. He does not have a full race car underneath him. Very slow, getting passed by everybody.
We missed it in the camera shot, but under braking for Tosa, Damon Hill went down the inside of Schumacher. They got very close. They obviously touched, and now he's in deep trouble. But the Ferrari V12 leads here at Imola.
And the Ferrari and the Benetton begin to draw away just a little bit from the McLaren of Hakkinen.
Biggest problem with the Ferrari V12, it is so difficult to handle properly. The best thing about the Benetton, it is a neat package that handles very well. When the car doesn't handle well, it uses up the tires. Schumacher will know that, and it may be happy to watch the Ferrari struggle and see does it wear itself down.
Schumacher was all over the red Ferrari of Gerhard Berger on that opening lap, but now he seems content to drop back just a little bit. Tosa, about a 60-mile-an-hour hairpin. Damon Hill in the pits. You knew this was going to happen. Look, the front wing is damaged on the right side. We'll see if there is suspension damage to that new trick suspension the team has added. But the battle is all up front, and it is all Ferrari. Gerhard Berger against Benetton Ford, Michael Schumacher. We have a preliminary report from the press officers that that Ayrton Senna, after that huge wreck, is alive. He has suffered a head injury of an extent we do not know at this point. He is at the hospital, and that is all we know right now. But it appears that Ayrton Senna is still alive and hopefully will remain so at this moment. Now here's a look at telemetry provided by Ford Electronics. In the green circle, gear. RPM is a percentage of 15,000 at the top. Throttle position at the bottom. As you can see, Schumacher hard on it, 100%. And on the right, the speed in kilometers per hour. Once you get over 300, you're looking at close to 200 miles an hour.
And here it is under braking. Under braking, the Benetton is very good. Takes a little look down the inside. But how unusual and what a change it is as the flags wave from the Tifosi here to see Berger leading in the Ferrari, the new Ferrari designed by John Barnard. Oh, over the curb Berger goes on the outside. Downhill run to Aqua Mineral, second gear. 60 miles an hour, then you blast uphill.
There you see the gap, nothing like 2.1 seconds. That's the way it was at the start-finish line between Schumacher and those that follow. Now Berger begins to draw away just a little bit. That distinctive scream from the 12-cylinder Ferrari and the much more deep-throated howl of the Ford Zetec R V8 engine. Rumor has it, Ford is considering expanding its engine supply to as many as 10 Grand Prix cars next year with this 15,000 RPM revving V8. That would be good news. Stay right there.
Hi, I'm Wes Kenny, music director and conductor of the Oakland Youth Orchestra, and I'd like to invite you, your family, and friends to join us as we open up Music Fest 94, May 1st at 4 p.m. in the Calvin Simmons Auditorium in downtown Oakland. This year's program will feature hip-hop recording artist Jay Spencer, Susan Blake of KRON Television, Michael Morgan of the Oakland East Bay Symphony, the Oakland Youth Chorus, and many other top Bay Area performing groups. We hope to see you there.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Ron Jones. People who receive or install unauthorized cable service are guilty of a crime, punishable by a fine of $500 or imprisonment in the county jail. The California Penal Code carries more severe penalties for cable theft. You can be fined up to $10,000 for a first offense. If you suspect someone of installing unauthorized cable service, please call Cable Oakland's hotline at 534-3356 to report the incident. No questions asked. Remember, cable theft is a crime. You can either talk to them or deal with us.
Introducing NASCAR, A celebration of automotive function and form. Exceptional handling for a ride you won't forget. In traffic or on the open road. Experience NASCAR for yourself today. It's the Winston Select 500 at 1:30 p.m. Only on ESPN. Find out why NASCAR is your car.
9 laps completed, a 63 schedule of the Grand Prix of San Marino. You're riding with Michael Schumacher. Second place on the racetrack, but he is in first place in the race. Here's how it works. Because the race was stopped based on relative position among the cars after the last complete green flag lap. That was lap 5. Schumacher was leading by 1.5 seconds. And as a result, Gerhard Berger, though he leads on the track, must get more than 1.5 seconds away from Schumacher to take the lead. Now there goes Gianni Morbidelli down the inside of Pierluigi Martini. The footwork getting the better of the Minardi. This entire race now is being run in 2 sections based on relative time when the red flag came out. So we'll join you for the excitement of what's happening on the racetrack, but keep in mind we'll have to update you for actual position based on time differential after 5 laps. Everybody got that?
Whatever it means, it's still a tremendous race here. The Ferrari leads Schumacher. Schumacher's so much more mature this year because he's quite satisfied to sit back and not charge past anybody. We saw that in the last race when he got up behind Berger, could have lapped him and was happy to just sit there and let it all unfold.
It's been interesting. We've been hearing about how the Ferrari does not handle very well, but at that last corner before the start-finish line, Gerhard Berger doesn't get up on the curbs. Schumacher does. Perhaps just testimony to how hard Schumacher is trying.
No, well, it's obvious to me that Berger has his traction control turned on. Oh, did I say that?
Shame on you.
That caused an uproar the last couple of weeks when Larini mentioned that he turned his traction control off because, of course, traction control has been banned in Formula One. But Ferrari do have a system to limit the power in the gears, and we can talk about that a little bit later.
Down into Tosa, the Tyrrell.
Inside Johnny Herbert. Oh, that's what Damon Hill tried earlier on. Didn't get away with it. There's David Brabham. Surprise to me that he chose, after the death of his teammate, to continue with this race, particularly as the car had a mechanical failure.
There you see the running order. Hakkinen runs 3rd, Larini 4th, 5th, Karl Wendlinger of Austria in the Sauber, and Ukio Katayama of Japan. What a show he has put on thus far this year. He has scored points, and now he is in the 6th and final points-paying position here today. There you see 7th through 12th, Morbidelli, Frentzen, Fittipaldi, Brundle, Martini, and Blundell. Then Johnny Herbert, Andre de Cesaris in for the Jordan team, and Eddie Irvine, Olivier Panis in the Ligier, then Brabham, Bernard, and Beretta.
Still chasing the Ferrari. We mentioned traction control. The FIA are trying to come up with wording that defines traction control. Now, Berger down the inside to block a move. At defensive driving, he's allowed to do that. The FIA are now saying, look at this. They're now saying any device that is triggered by a wheel spinning is traction control. Anything that varies the rev limiter in different gears is not traction control.
That because Ferrari has devised a system that electronically limits the revs in different gears on their car. Plenty of action down there in Tosa.
Well, Blundell tried to squeeze by Herbert. Herbert got the position back, but lots of action back here. The Simtek still trying to hold off the Ligier.
Now there you see Damon Hill back out there with his repaired car. Has taken the fast lap of the race thus far on lap 10, 1:24.335. Compare that with Ayrton Senna's pole position of 1:22.548.
Doesn't surprise me that Hill is fast. The 2 Williams cars were first and second fastest in the warm-up this morning, considerably faster than everybody else.
You can bet up and down the pit lane. The team managers and the engineers are working furiously at their computers trying to rejuggle their pit strategy, tires and fuel to go in these cars at least once, perhaps as many as twice during the race. Although all that strategy may go out the window considering we picked up this race with only 53 laps to go. Once again, Schumacher down the outside as Gerhard Berger drives defensively.
Oh, Schumacher is quicker. Oh, he is quicker. You can see that. We'll get good shots later on, but look at Katayama, absolutely flying in the Tyrrell, then Fittipaldi, then the second of the Arrows cars.
That battle for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 could heat up in the next few moments. As it is, Hakkinen, no, this is Schumacher taking Berger.
Berger will never live with him now because I think that car handles better, and we saw earlier, even down the long straight, that V8 now on full song has the legs of the Ferrari. Look at this already in less than 2 corners.
You saw that the world feed graphic there had Schumacher in front. There is Schumacher,
having just made the pass under heavy braking for one of the chicanes. And now down to Variante Bassa. Oh, he's in. First of the pit stops.
Now this is interesting. Very early on, and just as he had taken the lead, that's a bit of a surprise. Michael Schumacher is in. Perhaps he had a puncture, or for some other reason, needs attention right now. Tires go on quickly, just a little fuel, a little slow at the left rear. 10.1 seconds, a long stop for Michael Schumacher. Now there.
So he will not be classified as the leader there because he never went by the start-finish line actually in the lead. Berger maintained that lead.
Here's another look at the pass from Michael Schumacher's perspective. Berger all over the road to try to hold him back.
Oh, good defensive driving from Berger. Over the curves again on the downhill run. This is where Berger got it wrong, and Schumacher pounced.
Begging your pardon, I thought for sure our Italian television friends were going to show us the pass. Instead, they simply showed us good Ferrari defensive driving tactics. And there goes Martin Brundle underneath the Jordan, being driven by Andrea De Cesaris, who drove for Eddie Jordan back in 1991 and came so close to a podium finish at the Grand Prix of Belgium, but was unable to finish the race.
On his way here when...
Coming this Sunday, NASCAR racing and a chance to win ESPN's On the Pole contest. The winner will present the Busch Pole Award at the Brickyard 400, plus over 1,000 runner-up prizes. Watch the race Sunday for details on ESPN. Sponsored by Busch Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Back live at the Ferrari circuit in Imola, Italy. You see Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren Peugeot out front, but he is not the race leader on the computers. Gerhard Berger pitted, a quick 7.7 stop for the Ferrari team. And although the leader on the racetrack is Hakkinen, the overall race leader is Gerhard Berger, with Hakkinen second, Schumacher third, Larini fourth, Carl Wendlinger fifth, followed by Yukio Katayama, Gianni Morbidelli, Christian Fittipaldi, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
I spoke this week to Neil Oatley, the chief designer at McLaren, and I think he's a bit surprised that the Peugeot engine is this strong this soon, because he said, remember how short a lead-in time they had before they made the decision to even go Grand Prix racing. And although he would like to win a race, he knows it's a very tall order. And interesting, you'll notice on the Benetton that the side barn door deflectors they use were pioneered by McLaren. McLaren no longer use them because with the V10 packaging in this car, they have not found it to be an advantage in the wind tunnel. Therefore, you'll never see it this year on the McLaren.
Now, without a pass on the racetrack, Hakkinen becomes your race leader. How can that happen, Bob? Well, what happens is that Hakkinen has drawn sufficiently far away from Gerhard Berger, as you see Michael Schumacher right there. He has drawn sufficiently far away from Gerhard Berger, who just went through your screen, that on time, cumulative time, matching the first 5 laps of this race with what we have run since the green flag, has put Hakkinen out in front.
And of course, this now plays into the fuel pit stops. You can stop when you like, as many times as you like, or as fewer times as you like. Now Mika Hakkinen, I wonder, is he taking a gamble running longer than normal on a fuel load? That's the question also being asked by this man, Schumacher.
Now there may be a problem for Gerhard Berger, who has now dropped back to 5th place on the timing and scoring. There you see.
That was Berger coming across the grass. We just caught a glimpse of Berger coming across the grass, out of control, so he is in deep trouble.
It's a Ferrari. It's Berger. How can we not be showing it here on Italian television? Well, nevertheless, there is Mika Hakkinen. There is Nicola Larini in the second Ferrari. Then Ukio Katayama. Here comes Michael Schumacher around Christian Fittipaldi. Berger made the pit lane and evidently overshot his pit.
He's in trouble. He's obviously going to back up into the garage, but we saw just a glimpse at the top of your picture as he went across the grass, never made the chicane, got it straightened out and went straight down the pit lane.
Well, that will be a tremendous blow to this predominantly Ferrari crowd. The home base of the team in Maranello is just up the autostrada, about a 20-minute drive from the racetrack here at Imola. There are your leaders on the computer. Hakkinen over Schumacher. Speaking of crowds, following Michael Schumacher's success in the opening race of the year at Sao Paulo, Brazil, the grandstand seating for his home Grand Prix at Hockenheim, tens of thousands of seats sold out in a matter of hours. We expect a crowd of more than 250,000 fans for the German Grand Prix in the second half of this season. And you can bet Michael Schumacher will be their hero.
And nothing like a hometown boy to create tremendous excitement. Oh, one of the LaRousse cars in deep trouble. Smoke, oil, water, steam, everything.
Olivier Beretta, a protege of former triple world champion Nelson Piquet. He is done. Now, the report from the pits is that Berger suffered a failure of his left rear suspension, and he, as a result, is out of this race.
Schumacher now trailing Katayama. Katayama having his best weekend, best qualifying. You see down at the Acqua Minerale there, you see the LaRousse off in the sand trap. But Katayama having by far his best weekend, qualified 9th. And this is the new J specification Yamaha engine that the Tyrrell is using, and it has really increased their pace. The J version engine uses a compressor driven on the engine to actually power the pneumatic valves they now have in that engine.
Another pit stop for Damon Hill. So problems continue for the Williams team. Now that may have been a scheduled stop. The other one was for damage to his front wing. Here's our running order. It is Hakkinen over Schumacher. There you see Schumacher trying to close in on Ukio Katayama, who is actually 4th in the race. Mika Hakkinen now in the pits. We'll see what that does to juggle the order.
Great shot there. How slim the front of these cars are. Literally like a pencil point. The only thing that sticks out then is the front wings. These cars have got smaller and smaller and smaller. And guess now who is back into the lead. It is Schumacher.
He gets around Katayama.
Has Larini stopped?
No, I don't believe Larini has. The only pit stop we've seen for Ferrari was Berger's. He is now out of the race. Downhill plunge from the highest point on this racetrack to the lowest. That incredible Ford Z-Tech RV8. I mentioned earlier, Ford plans to expand its supply to as many as 10 cars next year. Meanwhile, rumor has it that Flavio Briatore, who runs the Benetton team, has an agreement in principle to buy the Ligier team. And with it, of course, those all-powerful Renault V10 engines.
Last year's Ford V8 engine revved to 13,600 revs to get its horsepower. This year, it's revving to 14,500. And lots of wagging tongues in the pit lane think that it has as much as 50 horsepower more than last year's engine. That is why the doorbell is being rung by many people at Cosworth in England, trying to line up to use this very successful and light engine for next year.
In the pits, the Ferrari team is working on Gerhard Berger's car. He has not climbed out. That's unusual among Formula One drivers generally, but it is not unusual for Gerhard Berger.
Nice driver courtesy there. The Ligier sees Schumacher come down, moves out of the way, and Schumacher gives him a wave. Says, thank you, I'm on my way. I think Schumacher has very quickly elevated himself to a respect level that when people see him in the mirrors, very much like Senna, they just move over because they know he's faster, he's a kingpin, he's a winner, let him on his way.
Well, having said all those nice things about Gerhard Berger, he now proceeds to make a liar out of me. He has climbed out of the car. He is officially retired. On board once again with Michael Schumacher. There you see Nicola Larini bringing the Ferrari onto the start-finish straightaway, and behind him Schumacher, whose teammate J.J. Leto of Finland is out of the race. Knocked out by Pedro Lamy in the Lotus in that incredible start line shunt. Through Tamburello, where Ayrton Senna went into the wall at tremendous speed. No further upgrade on his condition, but he is at the hospital in Bologna. There you see the gap, Schumacher to Larini. And that number in the middle suddenly becomes important. That is the number on the computer. They are officially 4 seconds and change apart.
So Larini is actually leading on the road, but because of the combination times of the first 6 laps and the amount we've run now, officially on the computer, he's actually running second, but he's leading on the road. What a feeling that must be for Larini, who, remember, is only their test driver, and he is substituting, filling in for a lazy, but he is doing a tremendous job, just as he did the last time. He substituted for Ferrari when he filled in for Alain Prost down in Australia, I believe, and I think he brought the car home in the points.
Indeed he did, driving the experimental active suspension on the Ferrari, no longer allowed, of course. Schumacher leads Larini and Fittipaldi up on the podium.
Reincarnation? Armor All Tire Foam. It cleans, it shines, it makes tires look like new. Now do you believe?
Introducing the Volvo 850 Sports Wagon.
I'd like to make a simple point about a gasoline additive called ProGuard. ProGuard's patented take-on chemistry begins cleaning deposits not only from fuel injectors but throughout your engine's intake system for a noticeably smoother performance.
Welcome back to the Grand Prix of San Marino. There you see the running order already begun by our friends from Italian television and the world feed. Keep in mind your leader is Michael Schumacher, followed by the Ferrari of Nicola Larini, Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Carl Wendlinger. Excuse me, Frentzen. Nope, that can't be right. I'll have to update that in just a moment. Now the 2 cars up front, Schumacher and Larini, very close together. But that is a bit of an illusion because we are running this race in 2 portions. You saw a brief look at a pit stop there for the Sauber team, which led to my confusion.
And it is confusion when you run these races over time additions, which is what we have here. So now officially, remember, on the road they're within a second, but Larini was obviously 1.4 seconds last, 5.4 seconds behind Schumacher. The end of lap 6 when Senna had his crash and it was red flagged.
As you see, Wendlinger has moved up into 4th place. There is Hakkinen making his way around in that McLaren Peugeot. You mentioned earlier, Derek, the great job Peugeot has done bringing this V10 engine online. They only pushed the button to start this program in the middle of last summer, had an engine on the dyno in December, and they were testing their car in February. That is a very short gestation period for what is essentially a brand new engine, although one that uses technology developed by Peugeot's very successful sports car program, including a pair of victories back-to-back at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
So Schumacher again in control. 3 races in a row. Schumacher finally takes control of this one again, but it's hard to believe his run of luck is so strong and the run of bad luck is so bad for Ayrton Senna, which of course makes life a lot easier for Michael Schumacher.
You see the leaders going around the Simtech. David Brabham, younger brother of Jeff Brabham, 4-time IMSA sports car driving champion. And of course, the middle son of 3 for Sir Jack Brabham, a 3-time world champion. And a man intimately involved in that Simtech program. Boy, what must have gone through his mind before sending his son back out in that race car, a car that produced a fatal accident for Roland Ratzenberger yesterday. There's Pierluigi Martini doing battle with Martin Brundle down the inside. That was close.
Oh, that was close. Martin's already been off the racetrack this weekend on Friday on the downhill run to Rivazza. Lost control, went over the curve and had what he termed as a harmless spin. Here's the run here down to Rivazza, and one of the Pacific cars is off, Gasho.
One of the 2 new teams in Formula One this year, Simtech being the other. Gasho in that Pacific with Ilmore Power parked by the side of the road. I believe he pulled it off and left it there.
Both cars failed to qualify at the last race, but Gasho, who I believe has a financial interest in this team, rolls to a halt. The Pacific team struggling, I think, to find their feet in the new world, the cold, cut and thrust, do it right now world of Formula One.
And they are eminently qualified to do so. Former champions in FIA International Formula 3000 competition, the final stepping stone before Formula One. But Keith Wiggins, who owns and operates that team, says he is surprised at what it takes. He thought he knew what it would take to succeed in Formula One, but even he has been surprised. We still have no further medical update on the condition of 3-time world driving champion Ayrton Senna, who had that huge shunt on lap number 6 of this race.
Oh, he makes it. Brundle finally. Oh, he does. Oh, big one. Big one. Does he keep it out of the sand trap?
Does he keep it running? He does. What a bit of driving by Pierluigi Martini, who got it sideways. I thought he was going to be able to pull it back.
Well, the old red Italian mist began to come out there when the Brit Brundle, going down the outside, made the pass, and then Martini came back for a second attack. But look what he lost. He made contact with Brundle, but I don't think it was hard enough. Here it is again. Brundle has the line. He goes to defensive position. Defend. Martini down the inside, touches wheels, and very, very lucky to keep it out of the sand trap, but luckily keeps the engine running, and he's on his way.
Wasn't it the old NASCAR great Curtis Turner who had a big wreck, was asked by the press what happened? He said, well, I got a little behind on my steering. Nicola Larini in the sole remaining Ferrari in this race runs in second place, and as you saw the gap earlier, Michael Schumacher is beginning to draw away once again. Schumacher lapped the field in Brazil, very nearly did so in Japan at the Grand Prix of the Pacific a few weeks ago. And now he is out front here again. What an amazing story this season has been thus far for Michael Schumacher. Everybody saw him as a future world champion, but I don't think anyone expected this kind of success this soon. And give credit to Nicola Larini doing a great job for Ferrari. Now there you see Martini has brought his Minardi into the pits using the latest specification of the old Ford V8 engine that a year ago was state-of-the-art, air valves and all the trick stuff. But now with the Zetec RV8 that powers this car for Michael Schumacher, it is the next run down the food chain when it comes to V8 power in Formula One racing. Michael Schumacher drawing steadily away. We'll take a quick timeout and return, approaching halfway at the Grand Prix of San Marino.
For all those who haven't read anything about the Volvo 850 Turbo, here's a brief synopsis. before has there been an argument this powerful for buying a Volvo.
Severe head injury, and that is the only update and report from the medical staff that we have at the moment. Hopefully, we can get more information before the end of this telecast.
There is Mika Hakkinen. Here's a look at the cars out of the race. Bertrand Gachot, who pulled his Pacific car to the side of the track just moments ago. Gerhard Berger, rear suspension. Michele Alboreto, we're not quite sure. Olivier Beretta suffered an engine meltdown. Pedro Lamy, J.J. Leto collided at the very start of this race. And, of course, Ayrton Senna, that absolutely astonishing crash on lap 6. 30 laps remain in this race. Michael Schumacher making his way through traffic. This is Johnny Herbert in the Lotus.
Hard to believe when you see the performance of the Benetton here that on Friday Schumacher complained bitterly about this car. He struggled, well in his terms he struggled, as Larini finally makes a pit stop. But there was bad brakes and bad traction on that Benetton. Now obviously all overcome and Schumacher leads, but Larini makes the stop. And Brabham finally comes to a stop. Is there contact with that right front wheel? See the white marks on it? Possibly not. Maybe just an engine failure, or
looks like perhaps he might have hit a stack of tires or something. White smudges on both the right front and right rear. David Brabham out of the race, and perhaps thankfully so, given what happened to his teammate Roland Ratzenberger. There is Michael Schumacher pounding along with the help of that Ford V8 engine. Consider some of the numbers involving this engine. How about G-forces? Each piston accelerating at 14,500 RPM. That's 8,000 Gs of force on the face of each piston. One of the Saubers getting a repair to the nose. And Schumacher is back in.
probably is a scheduled stop because he has such a comfortable lead. There he is. Lengthy stop last time. Should be around 7 seconds. Stalls for a fraction of a second, and then away he goes again.
Michael Schumacher cannot stall. He cannot do anything wrong this year. 14,500 RPM, nearly 1,000 controlled explosions within the body of that engine each second. Absolutely astonishing technology in Formula One.
When he won the first race in Brazil, we said, when was the last time a brand new design of engine won in its very first race? When he won the second one, we couldn't remember any engine that won both its first two races. I'm pretty certain no engine, brand new design, has come out and won 3 races in a row.
I suppose you could go back to Jimmy Clark, who brought
the most prestigious race of all, the Grand Prix of Monaco.
Now, earlier, we counted Michele Alboreto out of the race, and I mentioned that we weren't sure why he was out. Well, we are now told that he has made the pit stop, been repaired, and is back out there, obviously well back last in this field. Schumacher having to feather the throttle as he comes up on slower traffic. Andrea De Cesaris just ahead.
He struggled to get by De Cesaris earlier. That was before his pit stop. That's the Hart V10 engine against the Ford V8. Schumacher was very quick down here against the Ferrari. Well, De Cesaris is in a battle all his own. So he's got to take care of himself trying to get by Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. But I'm sure he'll move over. Oh, he doesn't move over. Makes life difficult for Schumacher up the hill. And he waved. Oh, he didn't wave. I think that was a fist.
Andrea De Cesaris, once touted by Formula One designer Gerard Ducarouge as a future world champion, is now the record holder and extends his record. I wasn't going to say that, Derek. Extends his record for starts without a Formula One victory, approaching 200 starts if he gets another season or so under his belt without a victory in Formula One. He has come close on a number of occasions.
Andrea de Crasheris was his nickname. His career has been heavily backed for as many years as I can remember by Marlboro. Believe it or not, it was even backed by Marlboro when he drove for Ligier. That was backed by Jetan, the French cigarette maker.
That is loyalty. The gap from Larini back to Hakkinen appears to be shrinking just a little bit. You can be sure more action is still to come. You're watching live at Imola.
It's enough.
One. Now, sometimes you get this. We're back to Katayama. He's still embroiled in a battle with the Minardi. But Schumacher's reliability in the first 3 races has been exceptional.
In his still short Formula One career, just 40 Grands Prix under his belt, Michael Schumacher has launched himself to the top of the chart in terms of points per Grand Prix, up against names like Alain Prost, the all-time winningest driver in Formula One, or Juan Manuel Fangio, who only drove, 52 Grands Prix in his entire career and scored in most of them along the way toward winning a record 5 world championships. But Michael Schumacher, a part of the Benetton team that was the first in 2 decades to score in every race a couple of seasons back, is well on his way toward dominating that category in Formula One racing. A Sauber pits. Ooh, Fittipaldi got a little bit squirrely. He might have been watching the car ahead of him instead of the corner. This is Carl Wendlinger.
7 seconds is what you like to look for ideally. 9. 7.5 to 7.7 is an ideal pit stop time. It's not spectacular, but it's ideal. Remember, the fuel takes longer to go into these cars than it does to put tires on. We're inside with Mika Hakkinen. Takes that right hand off the wheel because of the automatic gear change. That's one of the big advantages of automatic gear changing. The driver keeps both hands on the wheel, which theoretically gives him more control and the ability to give more commitment, particularly to high-speed corners.
You can hear just how fast those gear changes were. Bing, bing, bing. The McLaren, as you see Hakkinen pitting, uses an hydraulically operated gearbox, and those hydraulics have let him down this year. Let's see how well. The McLaren team usually sets the standard in quick pit stops. Let's watch.
There you go, 7.7. That's the number that can be the magic number sometimes that McLaren also seems to hit. Now, also remember, that McLaren has no clutch pedal. To activate the clutch, it is an electronic button that the driver holds down as he selects that first gear. And Mika Hakkinen only uses his left foot for braking. He doesn't use his right foot for braking. Drives very much like he did in the old days in go-karts.
Saw Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell getting underneath an opponent. The running order, Schumacher back to Larini, and that gap is expanding. Schumacher is pulling away. Katayama running in 3rd position. Of course, Hakkinen with his pit stop drops back to 4th. Christian Fittipaldi 5th and Gianni Morbidelli 6th. When was the last time we saw both footwork cars in the points? It was one of the Ligiers that Blundell got around. I believe it was Olivier Panis.
Now remember, Hakkinen needs Larini to make a second stop with 20 laps to go. That is the stop Hakkinen will be looking for, because I'm sure he still believes in this remaining 20 laps that he can grab that second place.
We are past halfway. Here's a look at our Haviland race recap. Michael Schumacher leads, and he's beginning to draw away. He has led since lap 19 when he had that great battle with Gerhard Berger. Changes among Mika Hakkinen running in third place. You see the gap, 29 seconds up to Larini. And Hakkinen has traffic in front of him. That will not help.
Let's stay with Hakkinen here. This is in fact the spare car that Mika Hakkinen is in. He jumped into his race car, the car that he qualified, and the spare car this morning during the warm-up did almost as many laps as Senna. And he used the word grave injuries and a grave coma. That is very, very, very serious for Ayrton Senna.
The race goes on. You're riding with Mika Hakkinen in third place.
Look at the race ahead of him that he watches side by side. You see the graphics. Schumacher now leads Larini by 32 seconds, but on the McLaren,